Perdóneme, tío Juan, pero se ve que no sabe nada. Las cosas que yo le digo se sienten en carne propia, en tierra venezolana. El imperialismo yanqui hace lo que les da la gana. Y es que usted no se ha paseado por un campo petrolero. Usted no ve que se llevan lo que es de nuestra tierra y solo nos van dejando miseria y sudor de obrero. Y solo nos van dejando miseria y sudor de obrero. Los niñitos más silentos que habitan allá en los cerros, más que vivir agonizan entreteniendo sus sueños. Más que vivir agonizan entreteniendo sus sueños. Contésteme, tío Juan, no se me quede callado. Conteste si no hay razón en que sigamos luchando por echar de nuestra patria al yanqui que nos la quita y al lacayó que lo tapa. Y es que usted no se ha fijado lo que pasa con el hierro. No pagan la tonelada por menos de 3 centavos. Ahí vamos a luchar, caramba, o nos quedamos sin cerro. Vamos a luchar, caramba, o nos quedamos sin cerro. No te dejes engañar cuando te hablen de progreso, porque tú te quedas flaco y ellos aumentan de peso. Porque tú te quedas flaco y ellos aumentan de peso. Contésteme, tío Juan, no se me quede callado. Conteste si no hay razón en que sigamos luchando por echar de nuestra patria al yanqui que nos la quita y al lacayó que lo tapa. Y es que usted no se ha paseado por un campo petrolero. Usted no ve que se llevan lo que es de nuestra tierra y solo nos van dejando miseria y sudor de obrero. Y solo nos van dejando miseria y sudor de obrero. Los niñitos más silentos que habitan allá en los cerros, más que vivir agonizan entreteniendo su sueño. Más que vivir agonizan entreteniendo su sueño.
All right. How's everybody doing? I'm Victor Coronado with Anticonquista, and my guest tonight is none other than Jesus Rodriguez from Orinoco Tribune. Ooh, is it playing again? It is playing again. Here we go. Jesus, ¿cómo estamos? How's it going?
Un abrazo, compa. Nice to see you again and in this important update about what's happening in Venezuela.
Absolutely. And so for folks watching at home, Jesus, you are in Caracas, Venezuela, correct?
Yes, I'm in Caracas.
All right. And Jesus Rodriguez is the editor-in-chief of Orinoco Tribune. I did put a link down below if you're watching on YouTube. So check out Orinoco Tribune. I think it's orinocotribune.com. They do a wonderful job of covering all Venezuela, all news and political happenings in Venezuela. So, Jesus, I don't even know where to start. Yo think I've been arguing with my friends con los tigres. Estamos discutiendo porque, you know, Venezuela's in the news, and of course everybody becomes a political expert when there's a crisis, when there's something happening in the world. And of course, the capitalist press is selling, you know, one perspective to the American audience. You're in Venezuela. I don't even know where to start, but let's just say a couple days ago, right, on Sunday, there was a presidential election in Venezuela. where you had Nicolas Maduro, who is the president of the sovereign state of Venezuela, running for re-election, and you had an opposition candidate run. And that night, the CNE, which is the body, the official body that confirms electoral results, confirmed that Nicolas Maduro was reelected as president. And from there, we're getting from the Western media, from the capitalist press, that the election was rigged. The opposition, which is being cheerleaded by Maria Corina Machado, we'll talk about her in a little bit, has refused to accept the results, claiming that there's been fraud. Elon Musk is on Twitter, claiming fraud. The Western media is claiming fraud. Jesus, you take it from there.
Thank you, compa. I'm gonna take it from the first comment that you made about people feeling that they are experts on some issues, and sometimes even there might be. I mean, sometimes even when there might be people that are knowledgeable of certain issues. The truth is that even in those cases, propaganda has a big effect on their sentiments. And I'm telling you this because a lot of right-wingers that I know enter into a state of psychosis when they hear that the electoral results. And in that sense, I understand what you were talking about. I mean, I understand that there might be even progressive people that got intoxicated with mainstream media giving fake news about an alleged unavoidable victory of Maria Corina Machado. And when they realized that it was not it, of course, they enter into a psychotic, I don't know how to call it, event or whatever. So that has been happening also here in Venezuela, and we have been facing it among a few friends that we have that might be right-wingers, relatives that are right-wingers. So we have to deal with that every day. But the fact is that Maduro won, according to the first report of the Venezuelan Electoral Council, with 80% of the votes counted, with, I believe that it was 51.2% against 44.2% for the right-wing candidate, Emundo Gonzalez, which is basically a surrogate candidate representing Maria Corina Machado, which is the new leader, new between quotations, because actually she has been there forever.
Right.
Actually, Maria Corina Machado was in the Miraflores Palace when they did the coup against Hugo Chavez in 2002. I mean, she was among those that went to the palace to celebrate the coronation of the coup plotter Carmona.
So Jesus, I'm gonna stop you there. Can we go back to 2000? So let's go back, right? Hugo Chavez gets elected for the first time. Was it in 1999?
He took office in 99. He won the elections in 98, but 98. He took office in January 1999.
99. And Hugo Chavez was a populist candidate. If I remember correctly, I think he ran as a anti-neoliberal candidate, very populist. I'm not sure if you'll have to refresh my memory if he was openly socialist at the time, but I know he definitely ran as a populist candidate, and he takes office in 99, and he did talk about nationalizing the oil industry, which for decades the oil industry was was basically serving multinational corporations, and the poor people, the working class people, really never got to benefit from all that wealth that Venezuela was producing. And for folks again that don't know, that are watching at home, Venezuela's sitting on 200 years plus of oil reserves, which is why, let's be real, that's why Washington is so interested in Venezuela, like they were interested in Iraq, like they're interested in Iran, in Syria, Libya, all these places. They all have one thing in common: it's a lot of oil. But go back to 2002. So what happens in 2002?
Yes, what you say is true. Hugo Chavez won. He didn't talk too much about socialism at the time, but he was supported by all the socialist forces in Venezuela that allowed him, helped him to win the elections. Despite, alone with his humongous charisma and the extraordinary and extremely unusual way his way of talking. But anyway, he won the election. In 2005 and 2006, he began to talk more intensively about socialism. But before that, in 2002, we faced a coup d'etat organized by the same people that are right now promoting far-right violence, and they took him out of power for 47 hours, which is a very unusual in history coup d'etat that was reverted by the people and the army, basically. So in April 2002, these guys organized a coup, and Chavez was basically kidnapped and sent to an island, the Orchila Island, which is a military base that we have in the Caribbean, and they kept him there for like 47 hours until people began to mobilize around the country in front of military cuarteles, how do you say that in English? Forts or whatever, barracks, and demanding the military to do something. And they went to the street demanding Chavez to come back, and then at the end of I believe that it was the early morning of April 14, 2002, Chavez finally came back to Miraflores, and that was an amazing history that we had the chance to witness here in Venezuela. But among those that supported the 47 hours dictatorship that ousted Chavez, among those was Maria Corina Machado and the same political cast that is right now supporting her and is right now promoting riots in Venezuela. So, and not recognizing the results of Sunday's presidential elections. So that's a very brief recount of that moment in 2002. I'm not sure if I talk about what you wanted me to talk, but I can clarify.
That's perfect. It's just
few more things.
I recommend folks. I don't know if you could still find it online. I think the documentary was called "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." I think.
Yes, I believe that you can find it online. YouTube.
Yeah. So I recommend folks watch that documentary. It was an amazing documentary because the words that just were uttered out of the mouth of Jesus don't really do justice to what took place. And I say it with all the respect, it was like a movie. It was like a movie. Yes. So they the right wing, again, there was a military coup. The right wing of Venezuela was not happy with Hugo Chavez and his plan, his vision for Venezuela. So they didn't believe in democracy then. They don't believe in democracy now. They immediately captured him. They kidnapped him, and they put him in an island somewhere. Playing devil's advocate, they probably should have killed him if they were smart enough, but they didn't.
They ordered to kill him, but
right.
They didn't do it.
But there were some, if I remember the movie correctly, and my memory serves me, there were certain people in the military that just were not going to do it, right? And that's a whole nother story of how Hugo Chavez formed revolutionary cells within the military, was able to influence a lot of the. And again, Hugo Chavez was a former military member. So anyway, so he gets captured, kidnapped, put on an island somewhere. And then the people of Venezuela they come to Miraflores, they demand that their president be brought back, and they collapse on the capital, and they demand that their president come back. And you could tell if they didn't do that, there was going to be a civil war. That's the sense that
one important thing that I would add, and that I forgot to mention, is that that coup d'etat happened just a few weeks after President Chavez make a decree approving several laws. Among those, 21 laws were approved before the coup. And among those, the most important ones was the land law for the campesinos. With a drastic program of land reform that happened later. The fishing law, which banned the pesca de arrastre, the massive fishing industry for operating in Venezuelan waters, to protect the small fishermen. And that had a humongous impact in the quality of life of we call it pescadores artesanales, the small fishermen.
Right.
And the other important law there was the hydrocarbon oil law that was passed in that pact, that for some foreign companies doing business with our oil company PDVSA, only to have it restricts the share that those companies have in those joint ventures, forcing them only to have 49% at most, in order for PDVSA to have the majority and making the decisions in those companies. And that's absolutely the reason behind the coup d'etat. And it's incredible that then even the social programs of Chavismo were not strongly implemented, and the economic situation in the country was not the best, because he inherited a terrible economic situation when Hugo Chavez took power. Chavismo was still there supporting and demanding the return of President Chavez.
Yeah, and they did. They had to bring back the legitimate president of Venezuela, which was Hugo Chavez. And again, just to be clear, when you say the new leader, and then you said, well, not necessarily new, because she was also a part of that coup, and she was a part. So Marina Corchado has been, and just for folks, okay. So it's good that let's talk about her just very quickly. I just want folks to know that this is a lady who has called for military intervention of her own country with the type of power that she wields. I just need for anyone who's a proud, let's say, American, if you're at home and you had the power that Marina Corchado, I'm sorry, I'm messing her name up. Corina Machado.
Yes.
If you had the power that she had, and you told the international community, I want you to invade the United States of America because we're having internal political problems and an internal political crisis, how would you feel about that? And how would the United States government feel about that? She would for sure be put in prison. I'm pretty sure. Absolutely. Here's the other thing that I need people to understand. That her and her organization has received money from the National Endowment for Democracy. Look up the National Endowment for Democracy. It has basically become, they're basically doing the work that the CIA used to do. That the CIA, so instead of the CIA overthrowing your government, assassinating your president, assassinating leaders, now the United States has pivoted to funding organizations like the National Endowment for Democracy, the U.S. aid, and funding democracy, quote unquote, democracy initiatives in Venezuela. They've been doing this for years, and there's a couple really good books that have been written by Eva Gallinger. I know she's no longer a Chavista, but I recommend folks read her books, Eva Gallinger. And in there she outlines she's an attorney by trade, and what she did was she used the Freedom of Information Act to obtain certain government documents to be able to basically kind of outline and show the American people and show the world really how the money has been, your taxpayer dollars, your American taxpayer dollars have been funneled to opposition groups. Now, again, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm here in the United States. If I receive money from China, from Russia, from Venezuela, from Cuba, I'm pretty sure I'm going to jail. I'm pretty sure I'm going to, with the intent of trying to destabilize our government. If I receive money from one of these governments with the clear intent to try to destabilize the United States government, I'm going to prison for a long time. I don't think there's any question about that.
Absolutely.
So I'm sorry that I went on a little rant there, but I just, this person who I literally saw somebody today, they put like a reggaeton, una musiquita de reggaeton over Maria's image and rostro, and it's like they're making her seem like to be this cool, hip rebel, Venezuelan rebel, and it's like, what are we talking about? This is a lady who's called for the military invasion of her own government, her own country, and has been receiving money from the U.S. for years.
And she has promoted the blockade and the sanctions also.
Right, that's a whole nother topic. So talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Yes, Machado first Machado is the daughter of a cast of oligarchs from Venezuela that in the late 60s or 70s had control over oil businesses with PDVSA, with metallurgic. They have a monopoly of scratch. How do you call that in English? Scratch metal business,
Mm-hmm.
Fundiciones de metal.
Mm-hmm.
So she's what Maduro calls the families, los apellidos, de lo que nosotros, what we call decades ago, los amos del valle, the owners of the valley, which are the oligarchs of Venezuela, and she became knowledge because she founded this NGO called Sumate that you mentioned, that then all of a sudden become a powerhouse here in Venezuela. But it was just because it was receiving a lot of funding from the U.S. And in 2002, she was already politically active, and she went to the Miraflores Palace to applaud the very brief dictatorship. There she is, my beloved Maria Corina.
No es fea también. Like,
no es fea.
So it's like, this is part of the thing, that, she's an attractive Venezuelan woman, and, she becomes the face of this movement, and the Western media is able to sell this pretty face to everybody. But continue.
She met with President Bush in the White House, like around 2004 or 2005. I don't remember exactly what year, but then after being in Miraflores Palace and running a few hours before the Chavistas came with Chavez, she became more actively seen in Venezuelan politics with this NGO, and they organized these polls and this referenda and this collection of signatures, because that's what basically Sumate does, allegedly. And since then, she became an active politician. She was elected member of parliament in one of those elections. I believe that it was the 2010 elections. I don't remember exactly when. But then she was expelled from that post because she actively attended OAS summit in Panama and accepted to be like a temporary diplomatic representative for Panama, just in order to have the chance to speak in that summit. And for doing that, she violated the Venezuelan constitutions that do not allow parliamentarians to accept foreign work or any other kind of word different than. So that immediately expelled her from the Venezuelan parliament. I mean, there are a million of things that I can tell you about that woman, but basically, she is an asset of the U.S., an asset of Washington, and she will do whatever Washington asks her to do and whatever Israel asks her to do, because there's a connection between those, two elements. She has done terrible things. I mean, the latest one is this fake primaries that were organized in October last year in Venezuela, in which she allegedly won those elections with 99% of the vote, which is a figure that is very questionable. If you have an election and someone wins with like 95 or 98% of the vote, you begin to question its validity. So in proportions, it was very not. It didn't sound a right number, but also they inflated the number of people that participated in that far right Venezuelan opposition primaries in October. And they said that they got like 2 million votes in that election, and Chavismo, with the experience that we have in organizing elections, said that the best analysts of Chavismo say that at best they could only manage to get like 600,000, so 1 million votes in those primaries. The truth is that after that primaries, she became the new leader, between quotations, of the Venezuelan far right. And I say between quotations because there's still an incredible amount of frictions among them in the Venezuelan far right coalition that is called the Unitary Platform, La Plataforma Unitaria Democrática, they call it in Spanish. And since then they present her like being like a newcomer or the new leader, which in reality is fake. And also, since that moment after the primaries, they began with this campaign trying to present Maria Corina Machado, especially in social media, in Twitter, like the new leader with an amazing support from all Venezuelans. And that's something that was clearly artificial. So, but anyway, she had support, and I'm pretty sure that she won those primaries. What I don't believe is that she won with 99% of the votes, and that 2 million Venezuelans voted there. Because the counting of those votes was in charge of Sumati. So you can imagine how clear was the elections, and they won all the ballots and all the minutes and everything to avoid anyone to do an audit on that primary. But anyway, I mean, that's part of what we have to deal with. And right now, after they won the ballots of the primaries in October 2023, now they are claiming that the Venezuelan government is hiding the ballots and the results and everything, when in reality, the Venezuelan law gives the Electoral Council 72 hours to present the results. But additional to that, in addition to that, the Electoral Council has announced that we are actually in the middle of a hacking attack that has affected the transmission of data in some polling centers in Venezuela, and that has delayed the delivery of the successes, bulletins with results that traditionally the Electoral Council does. So that's part of the issues that we have right now.
Jesus,
but no, go ahead.
Can you explain also so this is another thing that has come under scrutiny, is your actual electoral process, mecanismos que ustedes tienen, which some people have declared that you have some of the best systems in the world, while others have said, that this is everything is rigged. And so can you explain to the American people, can you explain to people Like, what's the there's like a two-part system that you guys have. Can you explain that, and how you have the kind of checks and balances for the public with their receipt, and how that's all handled?
Yes, let me explain that to you.
Yeah.
Talking about the electoral system, one of the first things that one has to highlight is that Jimmy Carter, that I believe is not a Chavista, a few years ago, like in 2012, I believe. No, I'm sorry, no, I believe that it was like in 2007 or 2009. He publicly made a statement saying that the Venezuelan electoral system was the best that he had witnessed until then. And we are talking about the head of the Carter Center, which is an NGO supported by the gringos, of course, and by the Department of State, that has witnessed dozens of elections in dozens of countries. So just to make it clear, and why did Carter say that? Because the electoral system has several mechanisms to avoid irregularities. The most important one, if you ask me, is the blockade of the double voting. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, we designed, like in 2003 or 2004, a mechanism of fingerprint of scanning of fingers to check if a voter was already reported, like if he already voted. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but basically,
yeah. So my understanding is that you need an ID, and they also use your fingerprint, right? Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, before you go to the voting machine,
yeah,
they scan your fingerprint to see if you didn't vote in other part of the country. Right. What does this happen? Because we want to avoid people voting twice or thrice. So no one in Venezuela is capable to vote more than one time because of this finger print scanning mechanism that the CNE designed. So that is one of the most important events that we introduced when Chavez was still in power. The second was the voting machines. And those voting machines facilitate the transmission of data because everything is recorded by every voting machine. At the end of the voting journey is transmitted to the CNE. But in addition to that, the information that the voting machine transmits before being transmitted is being checked with a receipt that the voting machine prints when you vote, and you put that receipt in a ballot box next to the voting machine.
Right.
What this means? This means that when the voting centers are closing, the members of the voting centers, the witness of the political parties that are in each voting poll, they check the results that the voting machine prints and what is in the box. And in 99% of the cases, there's a match between those two sides of the system.
So you have an electronic system, and then you have a paper receipt.
Exactly. Yeah. So after that, the results are transmitted to the headquarters of the CNE in Caracas, and there are also opposition witnesses checking that everything is being received well. Right now, one of the problems that the CNE has announced is that the transmission process in some voting centers has been hacked or attacked. I mean, the hacking has been basically to avoid transmission of data. So that's why the CNE has been denouncing since Sunday, and today President Maduro has a state meeting with different with all the levels of the state, what is called the council of the state council, I believe, and they decided to initiate an investigation on how to improve the electoral system to avoid these issues to happen again, and they request even the assistance of Russia and China in this scene, because it's evident that this attack comes from the U.S. Because they want to spread the idea that Chavismo is hiding the minutes of the vote, the electoral minutes, the voting minutes in it from each voting center, which has never happened before. And I'm pretty sure, according to what I've been reading and listening from the statement of Venezuelan authorities in the last hours, that should be happening tomorrow. I mean, the release of all the rest of the data of, the rest of the result of the 20% something votes that are still waiting to be announced. But it's important when you talk about these things. To my head, always, every second comes the idea of who counts the ballots and the acts in the U.S., for example.
Right.
Who knows exactly what happened in a voting center in the U.S.?
Right.
Who does the audits? And after the elections in Venezuela, we have audits. And before the elections, we have audits. I mean, we have like 16 or 17 different audits before, during, and after the elections.
Right.
So our electoral system is bulletproof. Disregarding the issues that has been happening in recent hours that I believe that are going to fix, and I'm pretty sure that tomorrow the CNE is going to announce the new updates about the results and present the minutes for the voting center and those things.
Now, as I was following along on Sunday, every indication that we got was that things were going very smoothly. You had international observers, which is something that the West has always wanted for Venezuela to, bring more international observers. Okay, they were brought in. The National Lawyers Guild was there. As you said, all the political parties are involved in that process of having that checks and balances when the polls close and seeing the results, et cetera, et cetera. Every indication that I got was that things ran very smoothly. It was very peaceful, and it was only until about late in the night when Maduro felt confident, but he never. I mean, you could correct. You were there. You're in Caracas, so you could correct me if I'm wrong. But he never declared himself the winner until it was officially announced. Meanwhile, the opposition was already claiming victory. Again,
they were cautious.
Am I correct in saying that? I want to be sure I'm correct.
They, as far as I know, they didn't announce victory before the announcements of the Electoral Council, but yes, 5 minutes before the announcement, they make a big statement with long faces, demanding the government not to take a false step. So they knew already. My impression when I saw that statement from them is that they already knew that they lost, and they just wanted to have time to do whatever they were planning to do. I mean, I'm not sure, but in any way, I mean, Chavismo from the other side was, I mean, at least President Maduro didn't make any comment. Of course, like 2 or 3 leaders of Chavismo, Jorge Rodriguez and Diosdado Cabello, make a statement hinting that we were winning. But they never. That happened everywhere.
Eso sucede. Mira, hasta aquí mismo eso sucede.
That happened everywhere.
Campañas locales. You're waiting for the results. Your people are happy. They're excited. You're waiting for the results, and you say, "We know we won." You say stuff like that. So it happens everywhere. I've seen it happen here in the United States. As you're waiting for the results to come in, your people get excited, and you start making, proclamations that you may have won.
A little bit before that, before those moments that I'm telling you, a few incidents began to happen in just a few voting centers around Venezuela, where right wingers were like protesting and creating chaos because the voting center was not closed. Something that I mean, when do you see a Democrat protesting because they want a voting center to be closed?
Right.
I mean, if you're a Democrat, you should be wishing for the voting center to be open.
Right.
But anyway, that's another discussion. But those things began to happen and began to be spread on social media. And the same thing with alleged opposition voting center witnesses demanding that they did not receive the acts. But now Maria Corina Machado says that she has all the acts, all the minutes. So who knows who was saying the truth, you know?
Right.
But anyway, I mean, those are part of the crazy contradictions that you notice in the speech and in the narrative of right wingers right now around these incidents.
So before we go, and I want to talk about the aftermath and where where's Venezuela now? What's the future going to look like? I do want to say one other thing about your electoral process, your electoral system. There was a referendum that was proposed, I believe, by Hugo Chavez many years ago, and I'll never forget this because I can't even. I can be honest, and you're going to have to refresh my memory. I can't even tell you what was in the proposal, but I just remember that Chavismo lost that night. And that same night, Hugo Chavez gave a concession speech to the Venezuelan people.
Absolutely.
That same night. And so I asked myself this question. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I believe that you're talking about the referendum for the constitutional reform in 2006.
Yes. And so he has to concede because he lost. He lost, right?
The same thing happened with Maduro in 2015 when we lost the National Assembly, the Congress.
Well,
just seconds after we lost the control of the National Assembly, Maduro went on TV and said, we recognize the decision. And they were talking before the elections about that. I believe that you are going towards there. I mean, that we were not going to recognize the result. Who says that? I mean, we actually right now have like 100 mayors from the opposition because they won in elections. And we recognize that we lost in those elections. We have like 3 or 4 mayors from the governors from the opposition also. I mean, the fact is that the opposition only recognize the electoral results when they win. In addition to that, President Maduro and the CNA proposed an agreement for all political presidential candidates to recognize the results of the Electoral Council and avoid violence. And guess who didn't sign that agreement? Maria Corina Machado, I mean, her candidate, Edmundo González, and another right-winger called Marquez is his last name. I always for Enrique Marquez, I believe. But they keep talking about Chavismo not recognizing results, which is a big lie. We always have to recognize defeat if we have to recognize it.
So here we're pointing out 2 major instances and these were big moments in the history of the last 25 years, right? I mean, and they, the Chavistas conceded defeat. So this idea that you have this brutal dictatorship in Venezuela that rigs every single election. If that were the case, okay, let's just play along. Then the referendum would have passed in 2006, and you would have never lost the National Assembly. Am I correct? I mean, am I wrong?
And we wouldn't have 100 mayors from the opposition, the governors from the opposition, and the ones that were before. I'm talking about the current ones, but before the current mayors that are from the opposition, we have having historically during Chavista time hundreds of other mayors and politicians that have won elections with this same electoral system.
Okay, so there's that, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna say this outright. If anything, considering all the meddling and all the U.S. influence and all the money, all the U.S. money that goes into Venezuela to try to destabilize your system, your sovereign nation. Perdóname que lo diga, but you guys are maybe a little too soft on the opposition. But that's another that's a conversation for another day.
That we can talk when we talk about Marxism and bourgeois democracies.
right. That's a whole nother conversation. But okay, ahora, so Maduro is declared the victor. He's no pun intended. He's the winner. So what's happened since then? What's going on? Because we're being inundated in the news with that, again, Maduro's a dictator, that this election was rigged, that the people of Venezuela want Maduro out, that they're flipping over statues and they're defacing Maduro images. And so what's been happening since Sunday after Maduro was declared the winner?
First, I have to go back to one of the things that the first things that I told you, the psychotic events that happen in the head of many of many right wingers that really swallow the fact that they were the majority. They constantly and repeatedly fall into that trap. This is not the first time. And that leads to what happened after the announcement was made, especially on Monday, not on Sunday, but on Monday, when, they began to reignite or trying to revive guarimbas. Guarimbas are basically violent protests promoted by them. And that happened on Monday. Thankfully, today, the situation was more under control, at least in Caracas, as far as I know, especially in the area where I live. I went outside and walked around my neighborhood and did several, make records, several videos to show the people abroad what was happening in Caracas, and it was peaceful. Of course, with you couldn't see too much traffic because a lot of people are like at home waiting to see what happened. Public transit is not there. I believe that there might be two reasons to explain that. I mean, the buses in Venezuela, the bus companies in Venezuela, the transport companies are in hands of private companies. So one thing that might be happening is that they're playing the tune of the right wingers, and another thing or they might be trying to avoid being victims of violence, because traditionally, during guarimba, the buses are the first things that the right wingers try to burn and to destroy. So that might explain why you don't see too many buses since Monday in Caracas. But anyway, the situation was easy today, better today. And I believe that also because the government has been acting very fast and stiff is the word in English, to neutralize these guarimbas and to put everyone in jail and to process them very fast through the judiciary, Venezuelan judiciary. So the government is showing that if you are going to break the law, you are going to be put in front of justice. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that might prevent a few crazy people out there to do that, to go ahead and promote more violence events like this. So that has been happening. After the results were announced, I'm talking on that happened like on Sunday, a few minutes before midnight. There was a big celebration in Miraflores Palace with thousands of Chavistas supporting Maduro, celebrating the victory. And on Monday, the guarimbas began. But on Monday was yesterday, the Chavismo announced that Chavistas were going to have also demonstrations today in Caracas. And those demonstrations happened today, and they were massive again. And maybe because of that, the right wingers also didn't went to the street today because they knew that Chavistas were there. They tried to. One of the most important things that they try to do is that they try to say that Chavismo is like a fable, that is story that it's like storytelling. It's a lie. It's like that we don't exist.
Right.
That we disappear and that we are not here anymore. And
when the reality is it's the most powerful political party in the country.
Absolutely. And it's not only a party. I mean, I'm Chavista. I'm not a member of the PSUV. It's a feeling, man. It's something that is hard to explain, but that is still there and was extremely visible in the rally that Maduro led last Wednesday, the 25th, when he closed his presidential campaign here in Caracas, and he filled from one end to the other Avenida Bolívar with, I don't like to talk about numbers for demonstrations and rallies, but some people say about hundreds of thousands of Chavista feeling not only that avenue, that avenue, which is the biggest venue for political rallies in Caracas, but he feel also the streets, nearby streets and nearby avenues that are also humongous. That is the biggest demonstration, a Chavista demonstration that I've seen on Maduro's time. And that demonstration resembles a lot to the best Chavez demonstration. I mean, the best demonstration that Hugo Chavez organized when he was alive. So I'm telling you this because if you see the videos of that closing rally of Maduro, you will see that Chavismo is still alive. Of course, whenever we have the demonstration, the right wingers began to say that we force the people to be there, that we pay the people to be there, all the
smiling faces, everybody dancing, and
people dancing.
It was all paid for.
I mean, we pay them for dance. We pay. We force them to dance. Crazy stuff that you hear from the right wingers. But anyway, I mean, for me, it was extremely refreshing when I saw that rally supporting Maduro last Wednesday. So I'm just trying to tell you with this that Chavismo is a force that is still there, is active, and for that reason, President Maduro, I was about to say Hugo Chavez, President Maduro won the election last Sunday. And my prediction was that he was going to win with about 5%. And it was very close. I mean, the difference, the margin was of 7%, at least in the first report. We have to still see what happened with the 20% of votes that are still not counted.
It's funny that you almost called him Hugo Chavez. I got to say this. As somebody from the outside, my initial impression of Maduro was like, I like him, but he's not Chavez. That was many years ago.
Absolutely.
And now it feels like he feels more like Chavez. He talks more like Chavez. I don't know that, you get this sense that, it looks like he has again, this is just me from the outside. You live there, but it feels like he has everyone's respects, everyone's attention. And things are much more organized in Venezuela. He said, I love what he said. He said, ya esta película ya la vi. Ya se ha visto varias veces. Nosotros sabemos lo que va a pasar. Sabemos lo que van a hacer. Nosotros estamos preparados para lo que viene. It's like we know what's going on. We know what they're going to try to do. We're prepared now. We organize. So it's interesting that you almost called him Chavez. He feels more like Chavez than ever now, I think.
He's improving. At the beginning, like you, I was not extremely sympathetic to the idea of Chavez selecting Maduro as his successor. Right. For example, among the names that were named when Chavez was about to die to replace him was Elias Jagua, but also Diosdado Cabello, of course. Diosdado Cabello, I see him ideologically talking to the right of Maduro. And I see Maduro ideologically talking to the right of Jagua. That's why I preferred Jagua.
Right.
But Chavez chose Maduro, and
Right.
we had to go with that
Right.
important request that Chavez did just a few days before he died. He came to Venezuela just to make that statement, to ask us to keep fighting, to keep defending a Chavismo, and to vote for President Maduro in the case that he died. That's what he basically came to Venezuela to do in December 2012. I believe that happened. So what I'm trying to tell you is that I was skeptical at the beginning, but and during the first years, I was very critic because Maduro was not taking the right economic decisions, and the economy was moving terribly because of what we call the economic warfare. And then when the sanctions began, he still waited several months until he finally, in 2018, make sharp and accurate and right decisions that has been moving us out of the crisis that we face until 2021, I believe. So we have been facing in for the last 3 years economic growth. I mean, GDP growth positive. Uh,
And
of course,
inflation is
the
under control.
inflation has been defeated. Hyperinflation was defeated like in
Right.
2001 or 2002, I believe. But inflation is on the way to be defeated. Also, in the last in June, the inflation was of 1%, and for many countries that's a lot. But for us in Venezuela, that's the first time that we have an inflation of 1% for a May of June in 39 years. Imagine that even before Chavismo came to power. So that gives you an idea on how, how good the economy of Venezuela has been behaving in recent years. So yes, but anyway, I just wanted to highlight that since that moment I realized that Maduro was going to defeat the sanctions, because those announcements were made when we were at the first stages of the U.S. aggression against Venezuela, and then in 2019, Trump came and began the Guaido crazy project. And the interim government and all those things that they have been doing to asphyxiate the economy. But despite this unprecedented in the history of Latin America attack by the US, we have been able to recover the economy. And you have to recognize that to Maduro. I mean, you have to concede that amazing achievement to Maduro. And of course, he has been improved a lot in the way his speech and his charisma in recent years also. So, I mean, Chavismo is in full support of President Maduro, the real Chavismo. There are a few small fraction of Chavistas that keep talking about that Maduro is not Chavez, and that Maduro is neoliberal, and you see the compass from the old Communist Party talking garbage about Maduro being a neoliberal IMF puppet or whatever, which is crazy, because if he was that person, I don't understand why the gringos keep trying day in and day out to oust him. You know.
And so I know I got to let you go soon here, but you know, what are your final thoughts here about the state of Venezuela? You're in Caracas. For those folks that don't know who we're speaking to, we're speaking to Jesus Rodriguez Espinoza. He's in Caracas. He's the editor-in-chief of Orinoco Tribune. You can check him out at orinocotribune.com. They provide wonderful coverage on Venezuelan news daily, basically. But where are you folks now? Where is Chavismo now in 2024? Where is it going to be in the future? What is the sovereign state of Venezuela going to look like moving forward? What are your thoughts?
I believe that economically talking, the idea is to keep pushing for a stiff economic recovery, a better economic growth. Maduro is pushing toward that. In terms of the elections and the political situation, Maduro called today or yesterday. Yesterday he called for a national dialogue. Of course, in the middle of the Guarimba, that doesn't make any sense. But he made the statement and he called for a national dialogue yesterday. So let's see what happened in that front. Meanwhile, you have the far right factors that I believe are going to face stiff response from justice. Since noon today, I began to receive messages saying that there was also already an arrest warrant against Maria Corina Machado. I tried to confirm it in order to release that information, but I didn't receive any confirmation, so that's why I didn't publish anything about that on
Eso es lo que
internet.
están regando por las redes
Uh-huh,
sociales. That's
uh-huh.
what they're putting out there in the social media world.
Yes, but I was not sure if that was true or not. I hope it is actually really.
She belongs
But
in prison.
of
Again,
course, of course,
if I were to do the things that she did or has done
absolutely,
with
absolutely.
her social profile,
But
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
no, with her profile, I would be put in prison if I were to try. If I had the amount of power and influence over the American people that she has over a certain parts of the Venezuelan people, and I called for military intervention of my sovereign country, if I received money from foreign let's say opposition or other governments that aren't friendly towards the U.S. in with clear intent to try to destabilize our government and try to overthrow our government, I would be put in prison. There's no other way to put it.
Yes. But just a few minutes ago, I began to see on social media also comments about Costa Rica announcing that they were going to give asylum to Maria Corina. So that made me connect the two things, and maybe it is true. I mean, it is happening. Maybe that is happening actually right now, exactly. And that's what Karina is saying. Hi, Karina. Thank you for listening to us. You do an amazing work, by the way.
Karina, by the way, is our comrade from Anticonquista, so I appreciate her thoughts always. Absolutely, and her contributions.
Yes, and Costa Rica made that announcement, and a few minutes later, the crazy guy Bryans from the Department of State for the Western Hemisphere making a statement that the Venezuelan government shouldn't arrest Maria Corina Machado. And so, you connect those three elements out there, and it might lead to the fact that news that I was receiving, those messages that I was receiving early today, might be true. Again, if that happened, that's gonna be absolutely respecting the law and necessary, because that woman has done a terrible damage to Venezuela. So if that happened, I will be extremely happy. But anyway, I mean, let's see what happened. The government, as I told you already, has been in terms of security, has been acting very fast to neutralize anything happening out there. As you mentioned yesterday, were these incidents of people dropping the statue of an Indian cacique, which was very important and says a lot about who they are. I understand that they turned down a statue of Hugo Chavez because, he's the face of Chavismo.
Right.
But why are you going to turn down a statue of a cacique, an indigenous leader? That says a lot about how fascist they are, how racist they are.
Right.
And they keep doing. One thing that I forgot to tell you is that one have to pay a lot of attention to the videos out there, because Elon Musk has been spreading. I believe that half of the videos and stuff that Elon Musk has been spreading on social media about Venezuela are lies, fake, or all videos or all photos of all events that has been happening. And actually, at least one or two of them he deleted, and they received some notes even from X to correct the statement that he was making. So one have to be very careful not to be tricked by dozens of videos and photos and statements and things that are right now out there trying to promote the narrative that first that we commit fraud, which is impossible under the Venezuelan electoral system, and second that Maduro don't want to recognize the victory, and second that that we don't recognize a victory where Maria Conira Machado won by 70%. I mean, even the numbers that they are giving do not make sense.
Right.
Today, actually, one of the leaders of polling firms here in Venezuela that is associated to the opposition, Juan Vicente León, Luis Vicente León is his name. He is the head of data analysis. He was interviewed and he said basically, listen, the numbers that the CNE announced of Chavista voters are very similar to the numbers that usually vote for Chavismo. He also said the machinery of the PSUV worked perfectly. And he also said another thing that I don't remember, but basically he named 3 elements that somehow he transpired that make him believe that the results of the CNA were accurate. So that's to mention something that happened today in the sense of the numbers and the results and how the voting developed. So that's basically it. I will ask people to be careful not to get tricked by following fake news in social media, to try to find different sources, because you're never gonna find good information reading about Venezuela reading mainstream media, and also to keep supporting and showing solidarity towards Chavismo, because they are going to keep attacking us. I mean, we yesterday expelled 7. We basically broke relations with 7 Latin American countries because the presidents or the ministers for foreign affairs of those countries began to interfere directly in the Venezuelan elections, and in an unprecedented move, Venezuela decided to expel all those diplomats. Exactly. Milei was the worst. I mean, Milei tweeted that Maduro was a dictator and that he in reality lost elections. And his Minister for Foreign Affairs did the same or worse, because she talked about some numbers or something in the election, saying that Maduro robbed elections or something like that without providing any sort of proof. It's like a childish tweeting behavior that you say, come on, and then you see Boric making crazy statement in Chile. Who else? The crazy guy in Panama, the new guy that was supporting those right-wingers, former presidents that wanted to come on election day or the day before election day to make a media show here that they are used to do in other countries, but we said that they were not going to do that anymore here in Venezuela. So, I mean, to pay attention to that, because they are trying to revive the Lima Group. The Lima Group was this group of right-wing governments following instructions from the U.S. that tried to isolate diplomatically Venezuela. That was created in 2017, and that group disappeared because they were not able to achieve anything. We defeated them once, and if that happened, we are going to defeat. If that happened again, we're going to defeat them again, because the strength of Chavismo is bigger than their stupidity and their colonial, I don't know how to say it in English, wet dreams.
Mm-hmm. One of the countries I was included in that is the illegitimate country of Peru that took out a socialist president who was democratically elected and is illegitimately in power, and then So again, this stuff, what this speaks to, for folks who may be confused about this, there's certain international norms and ethics. You respect,
your pair, you respect
self-determination. It's the sovereignty of other nations. You shouldn't be getting involved in the internal affairs of another country, just like you wouldn't want them to get involved in your internal affairs.
Absolutely.
It's a mutual understanding. It's a global thing. It's just the universal norms and ethics.
Exactly, international rules state that.
Yeah.
The United Nations Charter. Yes.
Yeah. So so this idea, especially the guy from Argentina who's just crazy, he's just a nut job. The guy's nuts. For him to try to wield his political power and do that, I mean, it's just really insane. I want to leave folks with one other thing. You made me think about something when you talked about the indigenous statue that they took down, and again, we can't give it justice here because we don't have too much time left. But a huge part of Chavismo is this idea when Chavez came into power as a populist, but he directly spoke to all those poor people who majority of them are Afro-Venezolanos, indigenous folks, the women, so Chavismo has had this focus and emphasis on the Afro-Venezolano, the African heritage, the indigenous people, the poor people, the indigent, the women. There's been a major focus on uplifting those people and trying to change their material conditions. And if you look at the Venezuelan elites, especially here in the United States, we see the telenovelas, we see the beautiful light-skinned Venezuelan women, and that's who's really been in power, in control of Venezuela for decades. And really, this happens all over Latin America. I mean, the Dominican Republic is no different. And so this idea of empowering poor and marginalized, the majority of them being Afro-Venezuelan. Chavez himself had coarse hair at un trigueñito, And so you have to understand this. It's not just, it's economic, but there's this deep hatred of the right wing and the elites, who the majority look more like, let's be honest, they look more like
they despise us. They despise us.
Yeah.
They despise us, and that's how faces behave to ordinary people. That's the reality. That's the face of fascismo.
Yeah. And so I guess
we are going to win.
Absolutely. Chavismo is going to win. I saw all the people dancing and celebrating, and I'm like, where's the social media thing going viral on this stuff? Nobody's showing that stuff. And so I'm here, estoy discutiendo con los tigres, los muchachos, and I'm sending them, I get the, from my connections and my resources, people send me stuff. So then I share them in the groups, and so we're going back and forth, but it's unbelievable how the United States is able to, and the Western media is just able to sell you a certain image or certain narrative, and they just repeat it over and over. And I always say this: repeating something that you saw on social media is so lazy. It's easy. It's lazy. You don't have to do any research, And so to try to explain what Chavismo means to a large majority of the people of Venezuela is hard. It's not easy, because you have to study, and you're talking about now 20 plus years of history, that things that have happened. And so that's hard. That's not easy. And for people to sit there and try to understand it, and they say, yeah, but he still needs to go. But why? Because you saw something on CNN or Fox or something on Twitter or Instagram or what you don't even know what's happening out there. You have no idea that there was this beautiful revolution that took place starting in 1998, 99, and it's been about empowering these poor people, trying to change the material conditions, trying to create a real revolution where millions of people could be uplifted from poverty and changing the material conditions, just transforming society completely. And the United States has completely waged war, a media war, an economic war, has threatened military intervention, And the result is that people are confused and they don't understand what's happening. And they think that, again, that Maduro's this evil dictator who eats children, and the whole Venezuelan society is going to collapse if Maduro stays in power one more day.
Yes, absolutely. And they talk that a lot about change, no? I'm talking about the right wingers, and that swallow the propaganda. They say, no, but Maduro has been there for too long. Let's vote for a change. And I tell them, listen, compas, in Venezuela we had a change since that level of change and alternancy in power, the same thing that you have in the US until 1998, for like about 40 years, and nothing happened because the two parties that govern us were doing always the same. They were part, like in the US, of an elite that just governed for themselves, and the rest of the Venezuelans were facing extreme poverty and terrible economic conditions until Chavez arrived. Now they talk that we have a lot of poverty, but they don't say that the poverty that we have right now in Venezuela is the result of the sanctions, not because Chavismo has been, because since Hugo Chavez took power until 2012 and 30, the economic conditions of Venezuelans in general grew exponentially. The fight against poverty was amazing, but because the U.S. empire decided to attack us to get rid of Maduro, they always have been trying to get rid of Chavismo, but they saw that with Maduro it was going to be easy, and they didn't realize that Maduro was this tough, and you had to concede that to Maduro. I mean, Maduro has been facing worse attacks than the ones Chavez ever dreamed about. And even though in those conditions, Maduro has been able not only to resist, but also to make us begin to recover the economy, to have hope for the future, and to think that we need to keep pushing for Chavismo. That is what we are doing. And it's important also to highlight that we are fighting here for independence, for sovereignty, and that Chavismo is a project that is not chauvinistic, that we don't, of course, we are patriotic because most of the Latin Americans feel some level of patriotism, but we are not talking about that patriotism that is chauvinistic, that we feel better than others. At least the Chavistas, we don't think like that because we believe in the concept of Patria Grande. We believe that we Latin Americans are the same people from Mexico to Argentina. And the fight that we are giving is not only a fight for Venezuela, but it's a fight to try to eventually have a united Latin America that could be able to get rid of U.S. imperialism, to abandon or resign to be a colony of the gringos that never is going to play in our favor. So I'm gonna run for election soon. I'm just practicing.
All right, there you go. There you go. And maybe Maduro could talk about the sucre again. That would be a good. We need to think about how to continue to integrate Latin America. And that was also part of Chavismo. I think that's also scared the gringos of Washington
with a common currency,
creating these organizations to try to combat the markets and the neoliberal system and the American ways of doing things or doing business in the world, and that scared a lot of people. In Washington.
That's true.
Yeah.
Bueno, nice to see you, compa.
¿Cómo fue?
Nice to see you. Nice talking to you again. I hope that you keep doing your work because you do an amazing job in Anticonquista.
I appreciate it. Yeah, so Jesus and I were talking about, he said, "Tú estabas desaparecido." He's like, you disappeared. I didn't disappear. I was involved in some union work. I was involved in local politics, and I'm always involved my problem is I'm always involved in maybe too much. And so, but maybe I'll start dedicating more time again to Anticonquista, which is important. And so, un fuerte abrazo, mi hermano. Jesus is in Caracas. To all my people in Venezuela.
Venceremos, compa.
Venceremos.
Be sure of that.
Absolutely.
Un abrazo.